Chapter 19. How Amadis fought with Angriote of Estravaus and his brother, and conquered them. When the brother of Angriote saw him coming, he took his arms and met him, saying, Certes, knight, great folly have you committed in not granting our demand. Wherewith they gave the career against each other. The shield of Amadis was pierced, but the lance broke against his corslet. His antagonist was thrown back, yet held he fast the reins till they broke, and he fell upon his neck in such plight that he knew nothing of himself. Hereon Amadis alighted and took off his helmet, and perceiving that he was in a swoon, drew him by the arm towards him. The knight then opened his eyes, and, fearing death, yielded. Amadis mounted again, for Angriote was already horsed, and had taken his arms, and sent a lance to him. Soon they encountered so gallantly that the staves shivered, and both passed on, for they were good knights. Then Amadis seized his sword, but Angriote cried, We have sword battle anon, and to your cost let us joust till yonder lances fail us, or till one be sent to the earth. This he said, deeming that there was no knight in the world who could wield the sword better than himself. Sir, answered Amadis, I have what to do elsewhere, and cannot so long tarry. What? Would you escape so lightly? I pray thee one course more. They chose fresh spears, and met in the course so strongly that Angriote fell, and his horse upon him, and Amadis passing on, fell over the horse of Angriote, and a part of the spear which had gone through his shield was driven by the fall through his harness and into the flesh, though but a little depth. But he rose lightly, as one who would brook no shame for himself and in his lady's cause, and plucked the truncheon out, and went to his antagonist sword in hand. Knight, said Angriote, thou art a brave youth. I beseech thee, confess my lady is fairer than thine, before it be worse than with thee. Such a lie, quoth Amadis, shall my lips never utter. Then began a strife that could not long endure, for rather would Amadis have died than failed one jot in this quarrel, and he laid on so fiercely that neither the great strength nor skill of Angriote availed him, for the sword came now upon his head, now upon his body, that blood sprang from more than 20 wounds. He, as could, drew back. Of a truth, knight, there is more worth in thee than man can think. Yield, quoth Amadis, else if we end the combat thy life will also be ended, and that should I repent, for I esteem of thee better than thou weenest. This he said for his great goodness in arms, and for the courtesy which he had used towards his mistress, having her in his power. Angriote, who could not choose, gave himself up for vanquishing, saying, Believe me, I not so much sorrow for my foil as for my wreckful chance that I this day lose the thing which I love best. That you shall not, said Amadis, if I can help you, and the lady will be ungrateful if she acknowledge not your honourable pains in her defence. I promise you to employ my endeavours in your behalf, so soon as I return from my quest. Sir, where shall I find you? In the court of King Lusart, answered Amadis. So he took leave of Angriote, and passed on with the dwarf. 5 days they rode together. Then the dwarf showed him a castle marvellously strong and pleasant. There is Castle Verdun, Valderin. There is Castle Valderin. Within that you must perform the promise made to me. Take your arms, for they suffer none lightly to go who enter there. Amadis buckled on his helm and rode on first. The dwarf and Gandalin followed. They passed through the gate and looked round and could see no creature. The place is deserted, quoth Amadis. So, said the dwarf, it seems. Why then hast thou brought me here? Sir, said the dwarf, there was here the fiercest knight that I ever saw, and the strongest in arms, who in that porch slew 2 knights. One was my master, and him he slew cruelly, as a man in whom there was no pity. The head of that traitor is the boon which I require. I have led here many knights to obtain vengeance, but for their sins they have either been slain or thrown into cruel prison. Thou dost the part of a loyal servant, said Amadis, yet oughtest thou bring no knight here without telling him against whom he should fight. Sir, he answered, he is so known for one of the fierce, that if I named him, none would venture to accompany me. It is Archelaus, the enchanter. Again Amadis looked around as if he might see somebody. He alighted and waited till vespers. Then he asked the dwarf what should they do. Sir, said he, the darkness is at hand. It is not good to tarry here. Nay, trust me, answered Amadis. I will not budge hence till he come, or some one who can tell me tidings of him. I, said the dwarf, will not stay, lest he should see and know me. Yet shalt thou stay, quoth Amadis, for I will not excuse myself from the promise if I may perform it. As thus they communed, Amadis espied a court somewhat further on, wherein he entered and found no one, but he saw a dark place with steps that went under the ground. Let us see what is here, he said. For God's sake, mercy, cried the dwarf. I would not for the world go down. But Gandalin caught him as he would have run away. Fear not, tall fellow, he said. And Amadis said, You shall not go till I have performed my promise, or till you see how it fares with me. Let me go, quoth the little wretch. I acquit the promise. For God's sakes, let me go. Said Amadis, Thou shalt not stay here after. I have failed in my promise. I desire thee not to discharge me of it. By my faith I discharge you, said the dwarf, and I will wait for you in the road to see if you come. Go then, good luck then, and good luck go with thee, quoth the knight. I shall remain till morning. So the dwarf fled in haste. Amadis went down the steps so far that he could see nothing. He came to a plain ground. It was utterly dark. Yet he proceeded, and groping along a wall, felt a bar of iron, whereto there hung a key, and he opened the padlock of the gate. Then he heard a voice saying, Ah, God, how long shall this misery continue? Ah, death, why delayest thou to come when thou art so needed? He listened a while, but heard no more. Then he entered the vault, having his shield about his neck, and his helmet laced, and the sword in his hand, and passing further he found himself in the great hall, where was a lamp burning, and he saw 6 armed men sleeping in one bed, and by them lay their shields and hatchets. One hatchet he took, and advanced. Anon more than 100 voices were heard crying aloud, Lord God, send us death and deliver us. Thereat was Amadis greatly astonished, and the men who were asleep awoke, and one said to another, Take a scourge, and make those wretches silent who disturb our sleep. Ay, marry will I, said the other, and taking a scourge he rose, but seeing Amadis he stopped and cried, Who goes there? A strange knight. The man turned back and fastened to the grate, and roused his companions. Leave him to me, said the jailer, and I will place him among the rest. This man was of great and strong of limb, and taking his shield and hatchet, he advanced towards Amadis. If you fear death, lay down your arms. If not, expect what my hatchet will give thee. Both raised their hatchets at once, and at once both blows fell. The jailer entered far into the knight's helmet, and the knight pierced through the shield of his enemy, who drew back, and so plucked the hatchet from his hand. Then Amadis drew his sword. The other grappled with him, confiding in his strength, but Amadis, with the pummel of his sword, drove at his face and broke his jaw, and shook him off. Then followed that stroke with such another that he never needed a surgeon. Then, sheathing his sword, he recovered the hatchet from the shield, and so played his part with the other 5, that the only 2 escaping death by falling at his feet or for mercy. Show me then the prisoners, said Amadis. They led the way. Who lies there? He said, hearing a lamentable voice from a cell. A lady, they said, in great torments, and taking 2 keys from the jailer's girdle, he unlocked the door. But she, who believed it was her old tormentor, exclaimed, Kill me, man, and do not inflict so many martyrdoms, O king. O, in the evil day was I beloved of you, since that love has cost me so dear. The tears came over the eyes of Amadis for great pity. Lady, said he, I am not whom you think, but one who will, if he can, deliver you. And he called the light. And when the soldier brought it, and he held a lady chained around the neck with a great chain, and her garments fretted and worn through to the skin. "Wretched as you behold me," she said, "yet I am the daughter of a king, and thus tormented for a king's sake." So he caused the chain to be taken off, and commanded garments to be brought her, and she covered herself with the scarlet mantle of the jailer, and he led her from the prison. There met them one at the gate, who called out to the soldier with the light. Archelaus demanded, Where is the king that entered, whether be dead or taken?" At these words the man let fall the torch with exceeding fear, and could make no reply. "Villain," quoth Amadis, "what fearest thou, being under my guard? Go on." Then they ascended the stairs, and came into the open court. The night was far spent, and the moon was clear above, but the poor lady, beholding the heavens and feeling the air, fell on her knees and cried, "Ah, gentle knight, God protect thee, and give thee thy reward." Then Amadis, raising her, looked around for Gandalin, and finding him not, he feared and exclaimed, "If the best squire in the world would be slain, I will take such vengeance as never been heard of." Presently he heard a cry, and following it found the dwarf hanging by one leg from a beam over a fire, stinking smoke, and near him Gandalin tied to a post. He was about to untie, but the squire cried, "The dwarf first, for he is in a worse case." And Amadis, holding him in one hand while he cut the cord, set him on his feet. Then Gandalin at liberty, and said to him, "In sooth, my friend, he who placed thee here did not love thee as I do." He went towards the castle, and found the portcullis down. Gandalin showed him the place where his horse was stabled. He burst the door, and took him out, then seated himself on a stone bench in the wall with the lady, for though he wished to deliver the other prisoners, yet durst he not leave her. So there he awaited daylight. Meantime he asked the lady, for what king's sake had she suffered? "Sir," said she, "Archelaus mortally hates him, and therefore revenged himself upon me. He seized me in the presence of many friends, and covering me with a dark cloud, carried me away. And from that time till now I have never seen daylight. And this he did as the worst evil he could do to my lover, King Arobin of North Wales." Is it he?" quoth Amadis. "How God be thanked, for dearly I do love that knight. But now I do not so much pity you as before, since you have suffered for the sake of being one of the best men in the world."